everyone, and welcome down to episode number 18 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, and my good friend down there in Tasmania, Cameron Blake. Good evening, Cameron.
Good evening, Brendan. How are you? You going well?
Very, very well. Very well, thank
That's
you.
good.
Yes, it's been another busy week with camera and photos, so
that's what we want to hear.
Got lots to talk about this week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, everything's going well here. We had a stunning day here today. We've been out walking with the family and riding bikes and doing stuff. It's been a really good day here. So bring on spring and summer, I say.
Out with the family. Does the camera go when we go out with the family?
Oh, I go with the world's best camera.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a 13.
We're catching on.
You know how many comments and I won't say backlash, but how many comments and feedback we got about you buying.
No, I caused tremors. I broke the internet.
Not only did you shock me, you shocked all of our now 200 plus subscribers.
Yes, so nice segue. Thank you for getting us to 200 on the YouTube.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Hats off to you. And we might have said last week that we would give the 200th subscriber one of my prints. Now, there's a minor issue with that, and that is that we don't actually know who was the 200th subscriber because it doesn't give us the names and when they subscribed.
Well, I think what happened, like I've noticed on YouTube as well, you get a little bit of spam every now and then. You get like stupid comments and stuff like that, and sometimes there's spammers subscribing. But I do think I know who was the first one that popped up. For it. So while we're doing this episode, I'm going to look up who that person is, and we'll make the announcement then because I did see it pop up, and that was the only legitimate one I could find. Yep. So I'm hoping that that's what we're after. So I know who that was, and
stay tuned for a special announcement because it could be you.
Yeah, it could be you, or it could be someone.
So not you, them.
Well, I don't
know what I mean. No.
Anyway.
And just as another segue, I mentioned before we came online here, you're looking fabulous. So you've obviously got the U-Butte streaming camera hooked up.
I do. I've got the Olympus EM1 Mark III hooked up, showing me in 4K definition. I'm looking sharper than you are today, I think.
Beautifully compressed down to whatever it does on 720p.
That's it. It's funny, isn't it? Like people talk about, it's off the camera. I was just talking to Brendan about a friend who's looking to buy a camera, and we've been talking about resolutions and sharpness and stuff like that. But when you squash it down to 300 by 300 pixel online, you can draw a picture and it's going to look sharp.
When people are flicking through their iPhone looking at Instagram, your photos will look fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
They will.
So when you this is just a hot take straight away. When you go out with the fam, you only take your phone as far as cameras are concerned.
Depends where I go. If I am going somewhere like a bit of a day trip, like today we just did a little short walk around home here. If I'm going somewhere for a day trip, I'll always pack a camera. It'll always probably be the Olympus one because it's just small and easy, light, and the quality is great. So if I'm going out for something more specific myself or with some other photographers, I might take a couple of different camera systems with me. But with the camera and the family, if it's just a short walk like this, it was just the iPhone. But having said that, I will go back to this spot where we walked today with a different camera in different conditions. So it was like this really cool sort of little forestry area with lots of those. I don't think they're tea trees. The ones with little pine needles, with like all the pine needles on the ground, they're like a tea tree, but they're not a pine. I don't know what they are.
We're photographers, mate. We're not botanists.
That's it. So, but I reckon with some nice sort of foggy and wet conditions, it could be really quite moody up there. So, I'll put it on the list of places to go back to. So, what about you? Well, you're iPhone all the time now. You don't take another camera, do you?
That is not true. But I love going with the fam on going for walks, and the camera always comes. But I'm always conscious of their time and being in the moment with them rather than getting the camera out. But I do, I reckon I always end up taking the sneaky pic here or there. And again, as you say, it depends on, like when we went up to the Otways last week, well, of course I was going to stop and get the tripod out and take photos. So that's a little different.
It is hard. Like even when we were up in the Otways not long ago, early this year, it was just Lisa and I with the kids. We were in Melbourne with mum and dad. But it was the first time I've been out with Lisa shooting for a while, and well, Lisa's a nice little shooter in her own right. She used to help me at weddings, and she's done other things like that. So, but yeah, you start planning your trips around, okay, how much can the kids take? How much can I take? How much can my partner take? And, you generally get out with about 2.5 minutes each day to get some shots. Yeah. It's great.
So it goes without saying that I take my best photos when I'm alone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny,
free.
There's ways about that I look at as well. Like I take better shots definitely when I'm alone, but I also take better shots when I'm like, I find that I love music. I listen to lots and lots of music when I'm driving or out hiking or whatever. And depending on what person or what genre of music I'm listening to, it changes the way I shoot. Like sometimes I can shoot really sort of intimately and sort of emotionally, and then other times I can shoot really wide sort of fiery skies and landscapes and things like that. So it's weird how it all collaborates together.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. It all one thing affects the other. I get that too. Yeah. I'm into my music, but I reckon though, if I'm actually shooting, I wouldn't listen to music, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, cool.
I hear what you're saying. Something else interesting that happened today was pretty cool. I had a phone call at the shop just out of the blue from a listener, from a subscriber who called and wanted to talk about tripods.
Did they get a prize for being a subscriber?
Yes. I didn't even ask them, and I should have. I'm sorry. I hope you're listening, but I didn't even ask them where they were based because, I'm just so used to, it's probably some local, but no, clearly they weren't.
Okay.
They'd tuned into the podcast and were very complimentary about the podcast, Cam.
I'll tell you what, though.
Said they quite liked it.
It sounds like we're blowing wind up our own backsides a bit, but I just had someone walk in my background there. There's like a ghost. There's a ghost walking through.
Alive.
There's a ghost walking through the ocean in the background. I wonder. Happy anniversary to my wife and I. 11 years yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we made it that far.
What's 11 years? Is that like
silver
or something?
Silver. I gave her a fork.
It's not silver. Silver's 25.
No, it is. It's silver. Steel. Sorry, steel.
Steel. Thank you. Yeah.
Stainless steel. I gave her a fork.
It's actually cutlery.
Well, that's pretty much what I gave. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, back to your fan. Sorry, I completely hijacked that. But yeah.
No, that's fine. No. And he was very complimentary about that. And he had questions about tripods, which I was happy to answer. So feel free to get in contact with us any way you like. You can even call me up at the shop or talk to Cam. You can drop us a message. There's plenty of ways to get in contact. And we're happy to give free advice. And
unsolicited advice.
Yeah, well, we're not sponsored. So we'll tell you, give you what we think you should have, not what the manufacturers think you should have.
Are we still not sponsored?
We're sponsored by
Willie Smith's Cider in Huon Valley, Tasmania. If anyone's listening,
I hope they're watching. I'll have just a 6-pack to start, and we'll see how we go.
They make some good cider down there.
We're sponsored by Ocean Grove and Torquay Camera and Photo, and we're sponsored by Cam Blake Photography. Yeah,
they're good, but I'd like to get more. If you know someone who'd like to sponsor the show, drop us a line. Anyway, what kind of tripod was this gentleman after?
So they picked up on an earlier episode where I was talking about my beloved Manfrotto 055 X Pro B, and they were keen on the current equivalent version. They just had a few questions about what tripod head they should get, and I recommend, because they're landscape through and through, I just said get the 3-way head. It's the way forward for landscape. So he was very thankful, and as I say, I don't care where you buy your gear, but if you've got questions, we can help you.
Yeah, that's it. We're here to help.
Yes,
absolutely.
Now you made an exciting purchase today, Cameron. Photographic speaking.
I did a real spur of the moment purchase today.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I bought an impulse buy.
It was an impulse. So I've been printing a lot of stuff for this gallery out at Richmond, and I'm doing an exhibition up at Cradle Mountain Wilderness Gallery, and I sell prints online just like you do and things like that. But I've been using printers down here, full gamut, and I've been using you as well over the years to help me print stuff. But I thought I might try printing my own stuff for a change. So I actually went out and bought a brand new printer. So I've been looking at this idea about 6 months ago, and I was looking at the Epson P800 printers, I think they were. I think they've just brought out the P900 or 906.
The 9 series,
The 9 series, which is the one I've just bought. And I got a pretty good deal from KL in Melbourne, I think they are. KL. So that's coming on its way. So I'm going to actually do prints at home. So I'm going to shoot, edit, and print. And I'm going to focus a lot of this. I'm giving myself a bit of a goal for 2022 that I'm going to really focus on shooting, editing, and printing, and trying to, put prints on people's walls more and make more of an effort. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure.
I'm all, as you know, I'm all for the printed image. I think that's definitely the way forward.
And I think we'll do an episode on how I've wasted 6 or 7 lots of ink cartridges and how much paper I've wasted in the first couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that episode.
So, question without notice: Are you looking to print on a few different paper stocks, or are you going to sort of focus on one?
I think I'll sort of focus on one. I've been looking at the Canson Rag Phototique or something, Photocure. It's got a weird name to it. And that I do like Ilford paper. I've always enjoyed shooting and printing on Ilford paper.
Yep.
So I might have it rack your brain, over the course of the next few weeks as to what you might recommend as well.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so much out there. It's amazing. And Canson, Ilford, of course, Hahnemuller. Hahnemuller's brilliant. They make great papers.
They're UK, aren't they? They're UK. Is that the English one?
German, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I know Michael, who works for me and is listening to this, just had a fit. He's like, what do you mean you don't know where Hahnemuller's from? And whatever.
Sounds like German.
That's his area of expertise.
Well, maybe I'll talk to him then.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But yeah, that'll be cool. It'll be a good little journey to go on with you and see what sort of results you're getting. But you definitely bought the right brand printer as far as I'm concerned. I've used Epson from day one and never looked back. They're absolute workhorses. They're brilliant printers. So,
well, my mate Luke O'Brien, who I'm doing the gallery at Richmond with, he's got one of those P9900, I think it is, or the one we were talking to you the other day about, which we still didn't figure out. But he's been printing my prints for these frames that we got for this gallery. We thought we'd just do it all in house, one thing, get them all together, and it got me thinking. I'm like, well, I can do that, and I can get the mats, and I can get the frames, and I can get the backings, and so I'm going to make a conscious effort this next 2022 year. I'm going to see if I can start printing out some more stuff and really just complete that circle. So the person that you're buying the image of is the person who took it, who edited it, who framed it, who printed the whole thing. I think it owes it has a bit more
credence.
Yeah, I think so. It's more genuine. It's more genuine, I think, as well. So.
I think you're right. And I get a bit of a buzz out of, I take the photo, I print the photo, I stretch the canvas, I frame it or whatever. I don't make the frames. I did that for a while in another life. I used to be a picture framer a long time ago. And that's a tough gig. I wouldn't be. You got to be good at what you do to make frames. So I don't think I have the patience for that sort of stuff. But everything else for sure. And we, as I say, we'll have a bit of a journey with you with this printer. It'll be good. And you'll have
could be
questions.
Expensive.
Oh, well, whatever, but you'll learn, and hopefully we can pass some of those learnings on to our listening audience.
Yeah,
and
probably
the number one piece of advice I can give is calibrate your monitor. First of all, calibrate your monitor so that when you're using printing profiles, they're going to be a lot closer. And if you can, and I'm sure there's someone in Tassie that could do this for you. I would get some custom ICC profiles made for your printer.
Yeah, well, I think that's something that Simon at Full Gamut down here, who does a lot of my printing as well, he's right onto that. So I'm going to go speak to him when I get it all and have a chat to him about before I go start wasting ink and paper.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend it, because then it's a case of what you see on your monitor is what you're going to see on paper.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do in Lightroom, you can do soft proofing. You can actually see how it's going to. I mean, it's very, very close. But a good monitor, which you've got, and keeping that calibrated, and then possibly custom ICC profiles down the track would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, stay tuned, folks. We'll get onto that. Also, I thought I'd just give another plug for the Westpac Rescue Chopper T-shirts and hoodies. They're flying out the door. They're still on sale. All the sale proceeds go to the rescue chopper in Tasmania, who sadly this week have been quite busy. We've had a couple of emergencies here. We've had some people missing off the north coast in a boat, which is still ongoing. And there was also a young boy who got bitten by a snake on the East Coast, but he's okay. They got him out as well. So they do an amazing job, and they do it in all kinds of crappy weather and conditions. So if you go to www.thehairytog.com.au, you'll be able to see them there. All the proceeds go to these guys. I make nothing out of it. I think it's just about raising awareness. So get onto that as well. It's, like I said, they've been going out the door last week, so I've already put one big order in. I suspect we'll be putting another one in as well. So thanks to those that have already purchased.
Well done. Good. Get on it.
Yeah.
Our main topic, we've called this episode "Want to Go Hiking," and this is more Cam's area because he's the dude that's been running these workshops and hiking, particularly the overland track, which we're going to focus on a little bit tonight. Cam is saying he gets a lot of questions around how do you hike with all that camera gear. So we're going to talk a bit about particularly hiking in Tasmania and taking photos. So where do you want to start with that, Cam?
Well, like I said, this question's been asked a few times, and we've got a couple of viewers that have also sent emails in asking about how, not necessarily the overland track, but how we go about organising ourselves for a hiking trip. You know, a lot of people are into hiking. It's a great way to get out and see your backyard, you know, whether or not you're in Tassie, Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, WA, Queensland. There is tracks and everywhere, even Northern Territory. There's tracks everywhere you can go hiking for multiple days and, you know, get some amazing photos, get to see some landscapes that people don't normally see. But yeah, we get a lot of questions, even the customers, like in the lead up to, is like, how do I take all my camera gear? What gear should I take? What gear shouldn't I take? How do I make it work? So what I thought we'd touch on tonight is go over a bit of an overview of what I would take for camera gear on any sort of hiking trip, whether it be Tassie or wherever else I've been hiking. And then, you know, there's a few little tips you can do, and, you know, how to get away with extra weight and less weight, and how to do it comfortably. So I thought, like, I use my Olympus system for every time I go hiking, mainly because it's lighter, but it also gives me a pretty good range of lenses to choose from that are pretty light and easy to use. If you're doing hiking, most of the time hiking is all landscape, sort of wide angle type of thing. You might have some mountains and some lakes and rivers, but most of the customers we have, I sort of advise that if you've got a 24-70 or a 24-105 or something with a sort of wide to mid tele sort of zoom length, that's probably the ideal lens for most hiking kits.
So I would imagine you'd have a number of clients that have got a fair amount of gear.
We do, yeah.
So you advise them and say, okay, well, tell me what you've got. This is what I think you should take.
Yeah.
Given
Usually I find a lot of the customers lead that conversation with the general email I have is, I have a Canon EOS 5D Mark, whatever it's up to. I have a 24-70, a 70-200, a 100mm macro, and an 18-50 wide. Can I bring all these on the overland track? And the first thing the answer is no. Do not, you know, unless you want to put yourself through the ultimate pain of carrying all that, you just don't need to. So I usually go back to the person and say, look, if you're only going to use that lens once, it's probably not worth bringing along. So, you know, the 24-70 is a pretty good range for the overland track. Most of the mountains are fairly close, so you don't have to really get right into the landscapes. And you know, the macro lens comes in handy. Macro lenses are good because they double up as a portrait lens or mid-tele photo lens as well. But yeah, most of the time people are asking what gear they have, can I bring? And we have to sort of knock them down a few pegs to say, look, don't bring this, don't bring that. You'll only really need this. You know, if you definitely need to bring this lens only. And we work with them as well. And a lot of the questions, not only is it the camera equipment, it's like, how do we keep things charged out there? What batteries do we need? Do you take solar powered battery chargers? Like the overland track's a 6-day hike. And I find with my Olympus or my Fuji system, I can get through 6 days of shooting in about 2 batteries. So I can sort of get away with 2 batteries for the whole trip. I always take an extra battery just in case, a 3rd battery. But I don't generally take a charger with me. I don't take a solar charger or a battery charger, purely because it just takes up more room and weight. Yeah. So a battery is only, you know, so big. You know, 3 of those is almost the same size as a charger, really. So, get away with doing that. So, but yeah, it can be a bit of a logistical nightmare for people, and I think there's also that fear of missing out. If I don't take that lens, and what about if a unicorn jumps off the cliff over the back there, and I don't have my 70-200 on there? Am I going to miss it? and we get a lot of those questions as well. And I generally try and say, look, if that happens, that's the moment that's missed. But you might be carrying an extra 7 kilos of camera gear for one photo, right. And it's painful.
Yeah. So, do you also? I'm assuming your advice would always be for cameras that are weather sealed, or is that not really necessary?
Yes and no. Again, it depends where you're hiking.
You encounter some pretty ordinary weather on that thing.
We get some pretty gnarly weather on the overland track. Like I just had a group come back. I didn't walk it. It was another couple of guides that I have do it for me. They came back. They had snow, rain, sleet for the first 3 days. But
amazing.
It is. Most of the cameras these days are pretty well okay. Like most cameras can take a bit of a rain shower as long as you dry them off. And but we use, a lot of people ask, how do I store the camera and keep it dry? Do you keep it in your backpack or do you just carry it in your hand? What we do is we actually have those top loader, the TLZ low pro things that you actually clip on the front of your thing, and you can actually just open it up, pull it out, take a shot, put it back in, zip it up. But they also have a rain cover on them. So we just keep them in there. So, if you're pulling your camera out in a bit of a rain, short storm or snow to take half a dozen shots, that's going to be okay. It's different if you leave it outside the tent in the pouring rain for the rest of the day. You're going to have some issues there. But so we try and advise people to get a little camera snoot case that has a weatherproof cover on the front. Or alternatively, you keep it in your bag, in a dry bag. It just means you've got to take your backpack off, which could be 15 to 20 kilos each time to take it off.
Yeah.
So if you have it on the front of you, some people have those, is it Peak Design, little clips that go on the thing? Yeah. We've had a few people there where they just keep their camera slotted in there. That works pretty well.
That's called a capture clip. They're actually quite effective. And you've got the strap of your backpack and your little clip there, and it's almost like a tripod mounting point, but it's here. And your camera just goes click onto it. They're pretty useful, I would imagine. However, though, if I was carrying a Canon 5D Mark IV and a 24 to 70, I'd be constantly turning left. I'd be
Well, it's amazing as well that how many people get to the end of the trip that we do, and I don't know how many. I've done that trip over 20 times now, and I would say at least 60-70% of the time people get to the end of it are looking to upgrade the camera they brought with them to something lighter and something smaller. So whether or not it's a Fuji or Olympus or a Sony or the new mirrorless Canons and Nikons, they then realise the value of having something smaller with the same sort of quality. The one thing I will say about those clips that are there, same with the snoot case, the one thing you do need to get used to is because you've got to look down at your feet a lot when you're walking on tracks because you've got rocks and roots and puddles and bits and pieces. You've really got to look ahead. You sort of look like a metre or two, and you're almost walking a bit blind because you've got this pack in front of you, the snoot case in front of you, or a camera on the side there. So you've got to get used to walking without sort of looking right at your feet. So you're almost preempting what you've already seen under your feet, which takes people a few days to get used to as well. But at least if it's in a packet or a snoot case, it's a bit more protected. The one on here, you can get branches hitting things and whatever else happens. But yeah, the biggest thing we have is what camera lenses do I need to bring? How many memory cards? How many batteries? Another big one is tripod. Speaking about our fan,
I was literally just going to bring that up as the next thing. Like, do you have people who want to take a tripod, and what do you recommend?
So a lot of people do want to take a tripod because most days we will do sunrise and sunsets, even some astro. The beautiful thing about the overland track is every day we camp on platforms. So a little bit like behind you in your shot, like the little platform there on the stairs. We camp on them, but they're all situated in the most amazingly scenic places on the track. So every campsite we get to it's pole position for scenery. So most people, you can literally set your tripod outside your tent and sit in your tent and just take photos at your tent. But people do want to bring tripods, and if we do astro, you obviously need a tripod. But I try and tell them to bring as lightweight as you can, even if they go buy one of those sort of cheaper plastic crappy ones that you might throw away at the end of it. If it's light, it'll do the job. The other ones that work really well are the Gorilla Pods. They work pretty well if you're doing that late afternoon, early morning stuff. But yeah, the tripod's one that gets packed away and gets used a lot. It does add a couple of kilos of weight, but it is something that is, I think, critical to getting those nice sharp images along the track when we stop.
And I suppose it would be rare when you're actually hiking that you're going to do a tripod image because
that's right.
It's during the day. So most of the stuff's going to be first light, last light, and you're already at a campsite.
Exactly right. Yeah. So most of the day it's all handheld stuff. We generally just tell people to bump the ISO up, maybe to 400. If it's a nice sort of overcast day, you might bump it up a bit more. But a lot of it is sort of handheld. But we stop for lunch and we stop for breaks. At some really nice spots, and the tripod's generally just strapped on the outside of your bag, so it can get set up really quickly. But we find as a general kit, people will bring their camera, a 24-70 as a lens. They might bring another, depending on the system, they might bring another fixed focal like 100mm or 75mm or 90mm, something like that. They'll bring a couple of memory cards, as one for spare. They'll bring 2 or 3 batteries. A lot of the cameras, like the Olympus I'm shooting on now, USB chargers, so you can actually bring like a little power bank that you might charge your phone off. You can actually charge your camera off that as well. So there is quite a lot of options out there to keep your camera charged. And then really it's just a tripod along the way. Things like circular polarizers, like we certainly say, make sure you bring them. We don't necessarily want people bringing the big packets of filters, the big square filters, because they get broken real quick and they take up a lot of room. They're in like those silly boxes that are quite hard to pack anywhere. But usually the circular polarizer...
There'd be nothing like taking a big square filter and breaking it in the first hour.
Yeah,
and then you've got broken glass for 6 days in your bag.
In your bag, yeah, and it happens. Like the backpacks they don't get thrown around as such, but you put them down, and you put them down the wrong way, you might break something. And so the circular polarizer, if you do need to bring neutral densities, you can get those variable neutral densities that can screw on the front. But most of the time, that's pretty much the kit people bring, and that gets people all the shots they need throughout the trip. The ones I've had some people who have adamantly said, no, I'm bringing everything. I remember one customer a few years ago brought a big Canon full frame, the 24-70, the 70-200. They had close to 8 kilo of camera gear, and one of their knees went most halfway through the second or third day, just under the weight. We had to split the weight up around the group. But
so speaking of splitting things up around the group, do we lens share? Is that frowned upon, or is it?
No, it's not actually. Share? No, not at all. It's not frowned upon at all. A lot of people, the smarter people, will figure that out real quick. So most of the time we get couples coming or mates might be coming, but you'll find in the lead up we generally do like a Zoom call or we do a group email so everyone knows what's going on, and we get an idea, and I purposely put it out there. What camera is everyone using? And as soon as I see a match, it's like, well, you guys could share a lens if you wanted to, or you could bring this or you could bring that, and people work it out. So they can take twice as much gear for half the weight. And it has happened along the way where people have shared batteries. People have like, oh, wow, I'd love to get that shot. I just don't have the lens. It's like, well, borrow mine for a second. Take the shot, give it back. So that's definitely not frowned upon.
There must be some kind of currency, like, beers at the end. Oh, here's a 70-200. You got 4 shots, but that's a pint.
Currency on the track is chocolate.
Of course it is.
Chocolate is. I'll tell you a quick story about it. We had a couple people on the group. One of these ones where we had this horror weather. We had blizzard rain, -7 or 8, snow overnight. And it was a father and his 2 daughters were doing the track with us. They were all sort of really enthusiastic photographers. And the young girl, she was about 17. Just one of those people that just, you could just tell, really smart, really quick-witted, great sense of humour. Just that cheeky younger daughter or younger sister. And we went through this whole trip, and the whole time we were at camp, her older sister I'd catch her every now and then just going through her bag, like her sister's bag. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, no, nothing. I was just looking for a rope, or I was looking for a beanie, or, I was looking for something. And we got to the last night, and the last night we generally set up camp, and any food that's left over we just eat, because the next morning you need literally a muesli bar to get out, and that's it. So everyone just puts all their food in the front, and this young girl pulls out like a dozen Snickers bars, and she'd had them stuffed all through her bag, and she'd been moving them around her bag every day somewhere different because she knew her sister was looking for these Snickers bars. So we get to the last night, and we were sitting at one of the tables. We cheekily went into the hut when we shouldn't have, and we're sitting at a table, and everyone's like, leftover muesli bars and a few lollies and maybe a meal and a bit of fruit or something, dried fruit left over. She pulls out, this wad of Snickers bars. And everyone's like, what the hell? Where the hell have they been hiding? And she was everyone's number one fan of her at the end of that.
She was the high roller.
She was a high roller, but God knows where she kept moving them. But that was a great trip. It was a really, really funny trip. But
Yeah, I can imagine these trips that you run, you would build some pretty good camaraderie by the end of it, and there'd be a lot of people who'd become mates.
100%, yeah. One of the trips I did, we had a guy from America, Craig, his name was. He came out here on holidays.
He'll be listening. Hi, Craig.
He might be listening. He might be. G'day, Craig. Craig from Arizona. He came on the trip, and he left America when Donald Trump was running for president. And he said, if Donald Trump wins the election, I don't want to go back to America. And I don't know if the timing was exact but I think it was either a couple of weeks before or a couple of weeks after Donald Trump had got in that he was on our trip. Anyway, he came along, absolute legend of a guy, really funny. He made this, we called it Craig's List. He ended up making this list of all these, every night at camp he's writing things on his phone. And I thought he might have been writing about what mountain we'd seen or animals or wherever. And all he wanted to know is he couldn't understand anything that we were saying. He was the only American on, the rest of us were Australian. He had no idea what we're talking about. And he's like, I'm just writing down these phrases so I can look them up when I get home to see what you guys have been talking about. So we thought, well, let's educate the man on the track. So the first one he didn't understand was chucking a sickie. He goes, what's chucking a sickie mean? We explained, and we get to the end of the track, and by this day he's had 5 days of us Australians telling him everything. Didn't matter what level, it was in the gutter, didn't matter. And all he wanted to do at the end, there's a big cafe at the end where people would usually just stock up on real food after 6 days of hiking food. And all he wanted to do was try one of our meat pies. He'd never had a meat pie. So we worded him up that there's a place called the Hungry Wombat. It's a very famous cafe down here on the main highway from Hobart to the west coast. And it's run by a lady and her husband, a really lovely couple, but real Australian, real Tasmanian. And he wanted to order this meat pie and have some tomato sauce on top. So we told him that he had to go in there and order a rat's coffin with some dead horse on top. and he just didn't want to do it. He goes, I can't say that. He goes, you set me up. We're like, no, we're not setting you up. Go to the counter, ask for a rat's coffin with some dead horse on top. So he sheepishly walks up and he, in his American accent, goes up and said, I'll have a rat's coffin with some dead horse on top. She goes, meat pie with sauce coming up. And he turned around, he's like, he was like, it just absolutely blew his mind that he'd spoken in our lingo. But the kicker to that story was we all stayed friends, and to this day, this is 5-6 years ago, we all still stay in touch. That group was a great group. I actually shot the only girl on that track. I photographed her wedding a couple of weeks ago. We all stayed really, really close. But the kicker to that story was Craig, when he got off the track and realised that Donald Trump had won, extended his trip by another 3 months. He just said, I'm not going home. And about 2 or 3 months later, we were talking to him, and he'd been to New Zealand and a few other places. And on the way back, he sent us a picture on his phone from 40,000 feet above wherever he was. And it was a picture of him drinking a VB, watching the castle on his flight back home. And he goes, I understand everything that you guys are saying now. And he goes, this movie is hilarious. So he thought it was great. But so if Craig, if you're listening, great trip. It was good fun. But
Craig,
yeah, we do.
Definitely a subscriber. He might have been the 200th.
He might have been, but yeah, you're right. We do build some great friendships, and it's not easy. It's physically hard. It's mentally hard. But when you get to the end, like the amount of tears we've seen at the end of happiness that people have made it. Yeah. We've been recently doing not so much photography trips, but we've been recently doing women empowerment walks. So Felicity, who's my other guide, she's come up with the idea that let's do women's only trip. It's a chance for women to get out and hike safely without any of the silly worries that they have about safety, which they shouldn't have in the first place. But I did all the bus driving for those trips, and there was lots of tears when they finished the end, and lots of really, really amazing stories and powerful stories as to why people are walking that track. So it's not all about photography. It's a lifelong challenge for people, and it's a bucket list item.
Yes, no, it's on my radar. It'll happen at some point.
You got to do it.
Don't know when, but we'll get there. It'll be great. So just finishing off on that topic there, in terms of the gear, it's generally speaking, you're going to narrow them down to 1 or 2 lenses, and you would recommend that they travel as light as possible, but without sacrificing too much. So it's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah, it is, and it's a balancing act, and it all comes back to the person and how fit they are and how strong they are. Like, some people get on that track and they can carry 20, 25 kilos, no worries. I get over 16 kilos and I don't like it. So, it's horses for courses. If someone's done a bit of hiking and done a bit of backpacking, they can carry that gear, then kudos to them if they want to take it all. But the general person we have there, I reckon it's usually that 1 or 2 lenses, a few batteries, a tripod, minimise it down as much as you can, and we'll teach you all the way along the way how to do the nice shots, where to be, when to be, and they'll walk away with some amazing memories that will last forever.
Very good. I like it. I wasn't. You mentioned you said the S word before. You said Sony. So it triggered me a little bit just to let everyone know that there is a new announcement coming from Sony in 2 days. In 2 days' time. Well, I think it's no secret that it's the Sony A7 Mark IV is on its way. So
not the iPhone, Sony iPhone.
Well, I'll buy that. No, it'd be definitely something coming along from Sony that'll be worth checking out. And part of the reason I didn't buy an SLR.
Well, on that, Olympus has got an announcement in 6 days.
What is going on? All these announcements, Cameron.
There's announcements, so we might do an episode once those 2 announcements have been made.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious as to what Olympus have got up their sleeve.
They
don't even have an inkling.
I don't know. If I was going to have an inkling, I have a feeling, and I don't know. I even tried to prod my Olympus contacts today, and I got nothing. Thanks, Aaron. I would go as far to say I think they might have squeezed some more megapixels into those sensors. So I reckon they might come out with 24 or 30 megapixel sensors, and they can't go any further with the image stabilizer. I think they've reached that limit. Otherwise, the Earth has to stop moving, because otherwise it doesn't work. So I reckon they might have come up with a different sensor.
I'd be keen to dive deeper into their pixel shift technology, which at the moment you can only really do tripod mounted because it's the amount of time it takes for the exposure. It'd be cool to see if they've come up with a way where you can handhold and do the pixel shift effectively.
The Mark III does handheld.
Okay.
Yeah, and does it very well. Doesn't work for sports and moving objects, so to speak, but for landscapes, I've tested it out handheld and tripod. The handheld is only 50 megapixel equivalent, and the tripod is 80 megapixel, I think. So it's a slightly less resolution, but it does work. So, but yeah, that's interesting because, again, talking to this friend tonight about what she wants to buy, a lot of Olympus innovation is now in a lot of other cameras. Like they were the first ones with image stabilizer, weatherproofing, pixel shifting. There's a lot of things they've done the first of, which have been married up into other brands. So yeah, it's always a bit of a scratch your head moment with Olympus. What have they come up with? Because they've always been pretty good. But
they're innovators. There's no question about that. They're innovators. So it will be interesting. Moving right along, we have a photography horror story.
We do. These seem to.
I don't like to read these in advance. I like to read them live, as it were. So I'm gonna get into this one. I think we might have been sent a Dear Cam as well, but we'll need to carry that over the next week, I think. So
yeah.
But we're going to do a photography horror story. This is from Jason Dargan. Hello, Jason.
G'day, Jason.
A watcher, a listener. Just watching the episode on horror stories. Last week, I had my camera on a tripod, so I decided to use the 2-second delay. Anyway, the light improved, and I took the camera off the tripod. Right at that minute, I saw some cracking silhouette shots with the sun. I was going apeshit with my camera. I was going apeshit why the camera was not taking the photo. I'd left it on 2-second delay. Small horror story, but lesson learned. Jason, I do that, I reckon, every bloody time I go out and take photos. I'm forever... Yeah. It's like, beep, beep. Oh, crap. That's right. Yep. Turn her off. Yep. Reset it. Go again.
I was going to say the same thing. The amount of times I've done that myself, I'm like, oh, cool. How good's that light? And I usually have mine on a 10-second exposure or 10-second countdown, just so I really don't have any delays there or any shakes. And I've done it a few times as well. I'm like, really? Like, what the hell's going on here? Take the bloody photo. And then the light shade's gone or something like that. I'm like, oh, shit. So yeah, Jason, you're in good company because Brendan and I we do that always.
It's always the user. It's always user error kills me.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. Like I like to consider myself a fairly experienced photographer, but every time something like that will trip me up. Or my favorite is I'll go out, I'll take the first dozen shots of the day, and then realise I'm on like 16,000 ISO or something.
I did that on the top of Mount Ossa, talking about the overland track. We were doing Astro the night before at Pillion Hut, beautiful. We walked up Mount Ossa. We had absolute smashing conditions. It's a big walk up to Mount Ossa, like quads are cramping. You're getting really weak in the legs. Got up the top, took a few photos. This is great. We were running a bit short on time to get to camp. Took a few photos, and I remember in the back of my head going, "Geez, the shutter speed's fast up here. I know it's bright, but geez, it's pretty damn fast." Got down. Got back home, put the photos. I'm like, "It's grainy as hell. What have I done here?" I was shooting on 3200 ISO from the night before. There was a bit of an overexposure because the light was so bright. I was just that exhausted from walking up there that I made that mistake. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, from Jason's horror story, everyone learns, and you win or you learn. And what comes from that is when you get your camera out and you're out taking photos, just have a quick glance across your settings, folks. Just save yourself a bit of heartache and having to use Noise Ninja or something like that. So
actually, now you've mentioned it, that photo from Ossa, I could probably add the noise thing on there.
Yes,
I've never thought about that.
You just send that to me and let me do the rest. I've got some software.
Really?
Which I will talk about in a future episode.
I've got the AI software, whatever it is, the denoise, Topaz.
Topaz is very good.
Have you got something better?
I have something else. Right. And lo and behold, as I speak, deer cam. A deer cam has just appeared.
I know. This is I looked at this as well.
It's almost live.
It is almost live.
It's almost live. Deer cam. I have this is from David O'Brien. Hello, David.
G'day, David. Thanks for the deer cam.
Hope you're enjoying the shows.
I don't know if I can answer this one.
Deer cam. Well, it's Deer Cam. It's not Dear Brendan. So I have a 24 to 105 millimeter lens. I was thinking a wide angle prime lens for landscapes. Can I substitute photo stitching for an ultra wide lens, or should I spend the money on an iPhone 13 Pro instead? What a legend! What a legend! So surely that's called taking the piss. Thanks, David.
I like it. You know what that also represents? It means that someone's actually listening to our program, not just skimming through. Yeah, so thank you, David, for being the
200 subscribers that actually listen to the show.
Take it away.
You can have first crack.
Okay, so I was thinking wide angle prime lens for landscape. Can I substitute photo stitching for ultra wide lens? I would always say, and this is something I probably got taught years ago, probably Camera House days when I was working with you. Well, whatever we used to call that. We used to go there.
It wasn't work.
Wasn't work. That the prime lenses are generally sharper lenses anyway. So, if you do a fixed 21 mil or an 18 mil or 28 mil or 35 mil, whatever it is, they're generally sharper fixed focal lenses. So I would say that if you're looking to go a prime lens for your landscape, then definitely if you can do a prime lens, go for it. Whether or not you need to do photo stitching or not, but I think the benefit is if you have a prime lens that has a high quality of sharpness to it, less glass elements, all that kind of jazz, your photo stitching will still probably work quite well with that fixed focal length as well. So I would suggest that if you're purely doing landscapes, and I do this with the Olympus 12mm f2, which is the 24mm equivalent. It's one of my favourite lenses. It's small, but it's super pin sharp because it's a fixed focal length. So I would say to David that if landscapes are your bread and butter, what you love doing, then having a fixed prime lens is not a problem. I would say yes, go ahead and do it. It's always good to have one in your kit. And if you do need to do some photo stitching, or if it's not wide enough, you might be able to stitch 2 or 3 shots together, but you'll be at least guaranteed that you've probably got a sharper version of that focal length as compared to a zoom lens. How's that for off the top of the head?
Good answer. I like it. Yep. I would.
Second to that.
Yes.
Don't go buy an iPhone 13 Pro instead.
Yeah.
Go spend
not just for that reason.
Go spend $2,000 on a really good lens.
What I would say, for what it's worth, is if you'd be surprised at what you can get away with, even with 50mm focal length. So I've in the past shot a lot of stitched panoramas and some people will shoot 3 images, as you say, which can look great, and depending on the focal length. What I like to do is any lens I've got, but preferably a 50mm prime. I'll shoot 50mm, I'll shoot vertically, and I'll take 7 photos.
Right.
I just think that gives you a much better result. The issue with photo stitching is alignment. It always has been, particularly when you're shooting like the scenes behind us. Those waves rolling in, they don't stop. So, and if you're shooting a stitch pano and it's really, really difficult, you've got to be quick, like really quick. And then, to get the alignment right. So that's the only real issue. I've seen, and I've done it, cropped panoramic images out of one shot from a ultra wide. I mean, that's great. It works really well. And these days with modern resolutions that you get out of most cameras, you can do it no worries at all without sacrificing a whole lot of image quality. So geez, did we answer his question? I don't know if we did, but
well, I think we did. I think
it's pros and cons.
It is. I think what he will open up a world of for him is if he does go a prime lens for landscapes, he'll have the best of both worlds. He'll be able to stitch if he wants to and get really good quality stitching, or he'll be able to get just great shots out of that prime lens to start with. So I would never tell someone not to go buy a fixed prime lens for landscape or portrait or whatever, because generally they are the better lenses or the better sharpness in the lenses. So I would say go for it. And the 24 to 105 is lovely, but I think if you're looking at a wide angle, you might go a little bit wider than 24. You might go like 21 or 18 or something like that. And like you said, with resolutions, you can take a bit out of that as a panorama as well. So
if you're shooting full frame, David, you have a close look at the 16 to 35. That will rock your world for that sort of stuff. And then
I'm
the
assuming
last
that's
word,
a 24 to 105. 24 105. I'm assuming that's a Canon. I'd imagine
it does sound very Canon-ish.
Yes, Canon-ish.
And there's a 16 to 35 available for Canon. So the last word I would say is stitching panoramic images is laborious. There's a bit in it. So again, lazy photographer over here. I'd rather have the one shot and crop it rather than. But there are times when it's just an amazing sunrise or it's a brilliant scene. I'm shooting a panorama here. I'm going to do that. As I say, we might even have a whole episode on shooting panos.
Well, there is a bit involved with it, isn't there, in regards to where you start the pano, locking your exposure, locking your focus, and things like that. Like, there's a few things you've got to be cautious of when shooting panoramas, and I think not everyone knows that. So it might be one that we can touch on in a different episode as to how we do that.
So we're running close to time here. So good episode, Cam. I enjoyed chatting. I particularly like the talk about the overlanding. You've whet the appetite there,
mate. If you and I would have this is going to sound terrible to all the customers I've had, the tens of hundreds of people I've taken down this track. But one of the best trips I've ever had was January this year, and it was with 4 mates from Melbourne. Scott, who runs the soccer shop in Richmond, used to run the soccer shop, does all my printing for the merchandise. Him and a couple of mates that I've known for years. We just went as a couple of mates, 4 of us walking the track, and it was hot. It was nothing under 30 degrees the whole time we're out there. It was dangerously hot. But we had some of the funniest moments I've had in many, many years. So you and I walking on the track, I reckon we could get you on there as a guest guide, as a photographer. You can come along. I've got all the gear to get you. And that's the other thing that we didn't mention as well, that if people are keen to come and do the overland track with me, I have all the gear that you need. You don't have to buy any new gear. All you need to have is the right clothing, the right boots, and your camera. I can supply absolutely everything else: tents, backpacks, stoves, food, the whole lot. You just got to have a bit of fitness, and we'll work you out on the lead up to that, how much fitness you need, and then we'll get you on the track. But Brendan, you're on there one day.
I'm on the watch list.
You're on the watch list. So,
just quickly coming up this week, you mentioned you had your wedding anniversary yesterday, and
I did have my wedding anniversary. Yep.
Congratulations again.
Yeah, we didn't do anything though.
Well, I've got my anniversary coming up next week. So
how many years you been in jail? How many years you been married for?
It's a big one.
It's 20.
It's the 20. We're hitting the
What's
20.
that?
So
20 is wood?
God knows.
I don't know.
I would say
it's got to be something big.
Yeah, it'll be like emerald or something like. No, I don't know. It'll be a gemstone one. But
no, it's not. It's not actually.
What is it?
It's China.
Really?
China.
I'm going to take her to China.
Or platinum. China's probably cheaper.
I won't take her to platinum. I'll take her to China instead.
I hope
so that's what's happening. I'm going to try and we're going to try and sneak away for a couple of days next week. So that'll be good. So
excellent.
Looking forward to doing that. And
that's exciting.
Is it wrong to take the camera with a trip away with the missus?
Look, I tell you what, do it, and then we'll have a horror story for next week.
That's exactly right. So that's what's going with me. And I know, Cam, you down in Hobart Town had a little taste of a 3-day lockdown.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got a taste of what. And I'm actually drinking a nice Scotch and Coke tonight in recognition that people in Victoria, hopefully by the time this episode comes out, are some sort of free or freer than they are as of last week.
Yes.
So good luck and well done to everyone who's put up with that. Can only, hardly imagine what you've been through. We were lucky. We were lucky enough to have a 3-day lockdown because of someone doing the wrong thing coming in from interstate. So that was pretty poor. We didn't really have much of an issue with it. 3 days, it's not too bad. But what it did do, it ruined my Uluru trip. So we were meant to be going to Uluru this weekend for a week and a half, 2 weeks. The Northern Territory's COVID policy is that if you've been in a hot zone in the last 14 days prior to getting there, you can't enter the state. Technically we're in a hot zone for 3 days, even though we weren't anywhere near where it was. So that's on the back burner. That's going to be another trip for another time. So
yeah, that's a bummer, man, because I know you were looking forward to that. But hey, look, Uluru's not going anywhere. You'll get there.
It's been there a long time, and it's probably going to be there a lot longer. So
it has.
Yeah, but that's about it. I'm just framing up some more prints, like I said, for the gallery and the Wilderness Gallery, which is all happening up in Cradle Mountain. But yeah, apart from that, I've got a week and a half spare that I didn't have last time. So
that's right. See?
I might try and get this printer going.
You'll have some spare time. You might as well even go and play golf.
Golf.
Yeah. It's another story.
I did want to also
listening. Yeah, you go.
Before you go, I did next week. I want to talk. We got a little bit of an email from someone about the YouTubers that we spoke about, our favourite YouTubers, and they quite rightly pointed out that we didn't have any female favourite YouTubers, and I wasn't taken aback by that because I thought, yes, we spoke about nothing but men photographers and YouTubers, but I couldn't actually think of a female YouTuber that I actually watch. And I could come up with one, but I think we're going to dedicate an episode either next week or the week after to some of our more favourite female landscape photographers / YouTubers, because Australia has got some incredible landscape female photographers out there. So, but if anyone's got a female YouTuber that's a photography-related YouTuber, I'd love to know, because I honestly don't follow any. I think I follow the Snap Chick. Lee the Snap Chick is a lady in America who does a lot of reviews. But that's about it. So, I don't know. Right, we can touch on that next week.
I'm going to take it upon myself to do a bit of research and find out the same. So, you're on. Absolutely. We will be talking about that in the next couple of weeks. Lots of cool stuff coming up. So, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. If you would like to hit that big subscribe button below, would be greatly appreciated. We would be greatly appreciative. That's not English. Anyway.
No.
Yeah. We would say thank you very much if you did that for us. That would be awesome.
We'd be happy.
That's right, because now it's a race to 300, right?
It's not a race, mate. Never was a race.
Thanks, Scotty from marketing. It's a race. Enjoy your week, folks. Thanks for listening to the Down South Photo Show. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Brendan.
And we shall talk to you next week. Cheers, guys.
See you guys.